start this talk. I must admit, I was pressed down into doing this at the last minute, so it's more of an impromptu quick tour, whistle-stop tour through drag and drop. And for those of you that don't know, well, what is drag and drop? It's a magazine for RISC OS people, delivered in PDF format, so usually means you download it for viewing on the screen. But you can easily print it off because today there's a kind of a special thing to mark the first Southwest show for 3 years. There's a couple of free sample copies on the stand printed out. But you can easily do this with yourself with a magazine. So, well, the name Drag and Drop, as you probably guessed, comes from what we know and love on RISC OS is clip something, you hold it, drag it to somewhere else, so drag and drop. Not I didn't invent the name, by the way, that was my predecessor who edited the magazine for a few years before I took over. So, well, I mean, why do I continue doing this? Why do I publish? Why do I edit? Well, really because we know and love RISC OS, we know how good it is and we're used to what we're used to, but people out there don't know how good it is. So it really acts as a kind of a welcome to new users and returning users that may have started with RISC OS 30 years ago or grown up with the BBC and they've forgotten about it and they quite remember how good it is. But there's no right or wrong way of whatever computer operating system you use, no right or wrong way of doing something, but yes, we think RISC OS is a better way, but there's no right or wrong way. But just to introduce people to a different way of doing something, an alternate way. So really the philosophy behind Drag and Drop is to be a sort of an accessible and friendly way of teaching people to code in BBC Basic mostly, introduce them to hardware, games, all that sort of stuff. So hopefully in a kind of accessible way, because I was talking to a few people in the show today and there's still maybe the remnants of a bit of hostility in RISC OS, which is a shame really, but hopefully that's how Drag and Drop is going to continue, so accessible and easy for people to read. Well, and the rest of this chat I'll just use as my kind of slideshow because I really haven't had time to prepare anything. I'll just use this issue of Drag and Drop as my kind of slides. So yeah, Drag and Drop PDF magazine comes out quarterly on the website draganddrop.co.uk, and go and have a browse. You can sample the magazine before you buy. Other publications which I'll touch on shortly. So let's go to find the right button. That's the advert for the next show coming up. If you're in the area, then Wakefield is always a good show. So there's just an introduction and the contents. As you can see, there's quite a variety of stuff that usually is featured in Drag and Drop. Starting with the beginner's page for perhaps if you aren't familiar or you've forgotten about how to do basic things like start an editor or a command line to start typing in the program, hints and tips if things go wrong. Next page, this is more of a recent edition because there's a focus at the moment, there's a focus on writing desktop applications, and that page is just a series of bits of code, basic bits of code that you tack on to other programs presented in Drag and Drop, and there's just one page of stuff, that's all you need. And I've come across, I'll tell you about an example or two of what used to be called WIMP programs, today probably we know better as applications or apps, but all much the same thing really. Then there's usually a page of news and application updates. A lot of this you can get on the internet, of course, but it's nice to have a roundup every so often, or every quarter. Drag and Drop comes out every 3 months. It's nice to have a roundup of where things are. Some things you may read on the internet, some things you may not have read on the internet. For example, there's a graphics tablet that works with RISC OS, which is just there in the middle. So then we start with the desktop applications, Wink programs. Always 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 examples that come in the magazine, which you can type in, or if you don't like typing in, you can buy the magazine with the collection of programs ready to run. But this one, it's a variation on something that's been done before, but this is the drag and drop version, a prototype, an application that you can use to generate thumbnails, process images, so process lots of images at once. So there's just a short description of how to use it, the listing there, it's a couple of pages, and then if you want to start coding and you like coding, then we have a short page on what the procedures do, what each line of code does, or not each and every line, but a general description of how it works. So that's one example of an app. This is part of a series on changing or customizing the desktop, the RISC OS desktop. So that one has got a Star Wars theme, but you can have anything and everything you want. Plus a couple of demonstration programs. This is also part of a series where we're looking at updating old programs, whether you've got something from Acorn User or one of the 30-year-old printed magazines that either when you try to run on modern stuff it crashes with an error or just doesn't run as you might expect. So we started a series there. That's another application which essentially is it converts template files to BBC Basic. So without going into too much technical detail, template file is what we use in creating desktop applications. Template files can be a bit of a nightmare to work with. So this application just converts them into basic BBC Basic statements that you can use with the book. And this brings me nicely onto the other publications that we offer in Drag and Drop. So that program converts template files into lines of code that you can use. If you read this book, now this book is called the Application Tutorial Listings book. Basically a complete course in designing and programming desktop apps. And point of admission here, I was really pleased at the reception of this, because so far this has sold about 90 copies worldwide. It's really really pleased with the response to that, because it's not only brings the various code and what you need to know about desktop programming, not only brings it up to date, but this book does it more from the point of view of giving lots and lots of examples to type in, rather than, say, concentrating on one particular application and adding to it, which is what a number of other books in the RISC world have done. So that's still available, still being sold. So come over to the stand and have a browse, a flick through, see if you like it. If you do, then as with everything today, it's on a special offer. So yeah, back to the magazine there. That's another application again. The program to type in, or if you buy the magazine with the programs already typed in, then you don't need to type it in. Next up is, if you haven't read Drag and Drop for a while, then You might like to have all the back issues on a memory stick. Can be a good, well, more than likely is good value for money if you haven't read it for a while, because drag and drop's about £5 an issue. Well, I say about, it's £4.75 if you buy it without the programs, £5.25 I think with the programs. So you've only got to pay 20 quid and you've already got 4. So come over to the stand and have a, let's say, have a browse and see if you like it. Here's some reviews of bits of hardware that we've come across recently. Cater for everyone here in drag and drop, or try to provide a variety of stuff for people to read. We've got a section there on BBC Micro 8-bit stuff, so I know a lot of people are still have BBCs and still like programming BBC Basic, so there's something for you there if you like the BBC computers. And then this is somebody who, funnily enough, he bought this book and has started discovering applications and programming them and relearning his BBC Basic. So he's got a column here, writing down in from all the way from Australia. So if you're not, if you're more of the kind of beginner end of coding, then that's a good column to read. Very entertainingly written, I should say. So there's a few things there. Well, that's just today's show prices, but as I say, do come back over to the stand and have a flip through the books, have a browse, and basically that's my whistle-stop tour of drag and drop.
What software do you use to produce it, Chris?
For that I used Impression, plus the PDF PostScript 3 generator for the magazine itself.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming and thanks for persisting to the end.
And one quick one.